Hello and welcome to another Strat Gaming video guide. In today's episode, we're going to be focusing on the Delhi Sultanate. While there are a ton of great beginner's guides to Delhi that explain all of their unique mechanics, I felt there was a lack of how to actually play with the Civ. By the end of this video, you will have a solid understanding of how to start off and set yourself up for success in the middle to late game. Let's jump right in. We start by queuing up villagers in our town center and moving our villagers towards the berries. Delhi collects berries 25% faster and their mill increases the berry output by 100%. So 250 bush will actually yield 500 food in total. Next, we take one villager to start a mosque nearby. One important thing to keep in mind with placing the mosque. We want the area of influence from the mosque to hit as many buildings as possible, since the research speed is determined by two things: how many scholars are garrisoned inside the mosque, and if that building doing the research is within the area of influence of a mosque. It's best to position the mosque so that it will hit at least the mill and the lumber camp or mining camp. Sometimes it's possible to hit all three, which is great. Next, we break off another villager to start work on the lumber camp. Again, the map will determine how close it will be, and sometimes you will have to walk far for it, but we want to place it ASAP to start that free research. So a lot has happened and we're only 15 seconds into the game, so let's recap. 4 villagers building a mill, 1 building a mosque, and 1 building a lumber camp. The first villager that comes out of the town center will be directed to the lumber camp, as we will need wood shortly. The mill villagers will harvest berries, the lumber camp villager will harvest wood, and the mosque villager will head over to berries. Now that we have 3 buildings complete, we should immediately queue up the research for each. For the mill, we have a choice between survival techniques and wheelbarrow. Wheelbarrow takes 50% longer to research and doesn't really help for the early game as much, so I prefer survival technique first, which will help when our berry bushes run out. In the lumber camp, there's only one option: forestry, which we pick up. The most important tech to pick from here is from the mosque. There are 4 options, but 2 of them, herbal medicine and piety, are irrelevant early game since we will keep our scholars inside the mosque. Sanctity allows scholars to capture sacred sites at any age and gives 100% more gold per sacred site held, and efficient production allows scholars to garrison inside military buildings, making units produce 100% faster. Both are amazing techs, but sanctity is the pick, as we will be picking up sacred sites ASAP. As soon as the lumber mill is completed, we start work on a house, since we will be supply blocked if we don't. The mosque villagers head over to the berry bush, and the second TC villager heads over to the woods. Once the house is completed, we send that villager over to berries as well. So far, we have 2 on wood and 6 on food. At this point, we are 1 minute into the game, and the hardest part of the opening is done. If you can manage to get to this point, you should be able to follow the rest with ease. I recommend trying this opening several times in a practice game by yourself if you're struggling, as it's a lot to do in a very short period of time. I think I broke my restart button pressing it so many times when trying to learn this. The next 2 villagers go on food, bringing the total to 8 on food and 2 on wood. In the meantime, be sure to micro your scout around the map. We need to find all of the sacred sites as quick as we can so we can plan our feudal age moves. Since we aren't using sheep early, we can ignore our immediate surroundings and head out from the start. The next villager is heading to gold and to build a mining camp. Once again, one thing to keep in mind here is that we want the area of influence from the mosque to link with the mining camp if possible. You'll see the square around the building turn orange when it does, meaning that we will get the reduced research times as we add scholars to the mosques. The mining camp placement isn't optimal here, but I think the increased research time is worth it. The next few villagers head over to gold, as well as we need 200 to advance to feudal age. If you like to min-max, then keep an eye on your gold count. Right now we have 112 in the bank, and we have 3 villagers mining. They each fill up to 10 gold capacity and then drop off, so we have to wait 3 cycles to mine the 90 gold to get to 200. However, they are not all starting from the same time, so their drop-offs are staggered. As we get close to 200, we will manually have them drop off their gold and shave a few seconds off of our feudal time. We pull all villagers off of gold and start the Dome of the Faith for our first landmark. This building will allow us to produce scholars for 75 gold instead of 150. We end up with 203, which is close enough. At this point, we should have enough gold and food to advance, but if you're short on food, perhaps canceling 1 villager from your queue to get the extra 50 if needed. In this game, we were able to start aging up at 3 minutes and 12 seconds. With 4 villagers building, we will quickly reach feudal age, which will help tremendously with our research time and pumping out military units quickly. We switch our TC villagers to head over to wood, as we will need lots of it soon. We pull off 2 food villagers to build a house and then gather wood shortly after. Wood will be incredibly important for building military buildings like a barracks and wooden walls, as well as research buildings like a blacksmith. Our scout finally returns from his long trip and brings back 11 sheep with him. This will come in handy when our berries run out, but also if we're facing early harass from French knights or English longbows, we will have a safe food source. As we get close to feudal, we pull a woodworker off to build a barrack so we can make some spearmen. The next step is extremely important. Remove the scholar from the mosque and head towards one of the sacred sites. We want to do this early, preferably before we hit feudal age. The research for capturing sacred sites will be done very soon, and we want that plus 200 gold per minute to begin flowing. We queue up a spearman and have him follow the scholar to the sacred site. We pick up a friendly dog along the way, but don't worry, as we'll send our scout to help pet him or just wait for the spearman to catch up. Because we've been focusing on wood, we can easily build more military buildings as needed, as well as a blacksmith. We are only practicing here, so it doesn't matter what we build, but scouting the enemy will help decide what to do next. Against cav heavy civs, spearman spam is great. Against early longbow push, stables and archers are great. If they are leaving us alone, then we could mostly boom and grow our economy extremely quickly. Be sure to queue up some research at the blacksmith. There's a whole video to be made for which to pick first, but it will depend on what the enemy is making. If you're ever not sure, I think armor is better than attack damage most of the time, and raged armor taking the priority, but again it depends on the enemy. Our wood economy is doing nicely, so we can switch our focus back to food, allowing us to produce villagers and military units. Our first sacred site has been captured. The gold will now begin to flow. We have a couple options here. We could wall it in with our spearmen for safety, or build a forward base near with villagers to help protect it. We're alone here, so we move to the next one, but I do recommend walling. We have plenty of wood for it. I really like to get a second blacksmith if possible, since the research is all free. You'll never hear me complain about free stuff. Keep in mind, when placing all of these buildings, make sure they are within the influence of the mosque. The borders will turn orange before you place it. I'm a noob and forget to build houses, so we quickly throw a couple up in the back. So we have tons of gold coming in, which gives us a few options. We can produce half-cost scholars to speed up research or building units faster. We can save it and try for a fast castle, or we could build a market to buy whatever we're short on. Personally, I think the market is the smart play as it gives us a ton of flexibility. We decide to start producing tons of scholars to fill up the mosques, as this will speed up our research significantly. Once the first mosque is full, we can make a second one and queue up 3 more scholars. To demonstrate walling the sacred site, we will use our spearmen here. Because we are Delhi, we can use foot troops to build defensive structures. I highly recommend doing this, as a single scout can swoop in later and undo all this effort, which can cost us thousands of gold in downtime while we go back to retake it. It's difficult to continue the guide further from this point, as we should really tailor our play relative to our enemy. But I'll show you an example of one possible way forward. We focus the majority of our labor force on food so that we can age up to castle, which is really where Delhi starts to shine. We have a market, so we could easily buy the resources needed or buy some stone for another TC. If the enemy scouts us mining stone, they will likely react by pushing hard, but since we have not touched our stone, we can sneak it in. A couple more things to point out before we finish. The House of Learning is an amazing landmark that gives access to more research. Reinforced Foundations gives +5 population cap per house and town center. Tranquil Venue gives mosques a passive healing bonus to nearby units. Lookout Towers gives outposts a +50% sight range bonus. And Honed Blades gives an incredible +3 attack to both men-at-arms and knights. This tech is S tier and should definitely be taken first if you're using either of these units. Don't forget to garrison scholars inside those military buildings. We are flushed with gold from the sacred sites, and being able to produce units twice as fast is amazing. Imagine making a Tower War Elephant in only 22 seconds. Or a spearman every 5 seconds. And lastly, we can use a keep for both area control as well as another town center. With the village fortress tech, it turns our keeps into town centers, allowing for both village production and resource drop-offs. One thing to keep in mind, the tech takes 5 minutes without a nearby mosque, so it can be helpful to quickly make one nearby, speeding up the research by as much as 5 times. The mosque will also allow us to heal nearby units as long as we have the tech, as well as a closer drop-off location for relics, further expanding our economic dominance. From here, we will be in a great position to defend our lands or mount an offense of our own. If the enemy does not react to the sacred sites being held, we will easily win the game. Don't forget to garrison your mouse inside the like button. It really helps a ton. If you would like to see more guides just like this, consider subscribing. Let me know in the comment section what topics you would like to see covered next on the channel. Thank you again for your time, and I'll see you on the next one.